Many successful stories you're familiar with actually follow some pretty basic common patterns. If you're going to be an active, engaged reader, you should probably be aware of some of these patterns. This video will help explain a bit more about these patterns common in today's literature. The first basic component of the story that you need to be aware of is the story itself, or the plot. It's made up of 5 components: the exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and the resolution, or otherwise known as the denouement. Each section should be connected to the next in some way. The exposition is the first part of the story. It introduces crucial components like the central conflict, the characters, and the setting that the story takes place in. This exposition can take the form of an introduction of some sort, or it can just be conveyed through storytelling. Next we have the rising action. The rising action is comprised of events leading up to the climax of the story, and often includes the characters trying to solve the main problem but failing somehow. And this brings us to the climax of the story. The climax is the crucial turning point that usually has the greatest suspense or action in the story. It might be some epic final battle or a race against the clock to finish solving some final mystery. Following the climax, we have the falling action. The falling action comes after the climax, and sometimes it can be a shorter part of the story. This is where things start to settle down for the characters in the book. And finally, we have the resolution. Finally, at the resolution, the story ends, and the story's conflicts and problems are solved. Now, for this assignment, you don't have to worry about memorizing or making parts for all 5 of these sections yet, but if you like to think ahead or if you already have an idea for a cool climax or ending, the information is here for you to keep in mind. First, we're going to focus on what you need to create the exposition of your story. For the first part of the exposition of your story, you should draft out the setting of your story. The setting asks basic questions like where and when the story takes place. Go ahead and pause the video and copy the format I have. And then when you do that, go ahead and fill it out. Your story can take place in modern time, past, or future, and its location can be the world as we know it, another planet, maybe a fantasy land under the ocean, or any place you can dream up. Next, you'll want to begin creating some characters for your story. In general, there are 3 kinds of characters: main characters or protagonists, sidekick or supporting characters, and villains or antagonists. There are also background characters, but you don't have to worry about those quite yet. The main character or protagonist is the figurative or literal hero of the story. There might be more than just one, but usually there are very few, if more than one at all. Most of the story revolves around them. Good examples of these are Katniss from the Hunger Games or Vin and Kelsier from Mistborn. Next we have the main villain, or the antagonist. The antagonist directly opposes the protagonist and is the source of the main characters and the story's conflict. The antagonist can be a person like some sort of evil villain, or it can also just be a force of nature as well. Like protagonists, there can be more than one antagonist, but there are usually very few or only one. A few good examples of antagonists are President Snow from the Hunger Games, the Lord Ruler from Mistborn, and even the wilderness itself in Hatchet. Finally, we have supporting characters, or sidekicks as we might think of them as. They help the protagonist in some way throughout the story. Just because they're side characters, though, doesn't always mean that they're going to be weaker than the main hero. Sometimes they're stronger in their own ways, but the story still revolves around the crucial protagonist. Some examples of supporting characters are Merry and Pippin from Lord of the Rings, or the Furious 5 from Kung Fu Panda. Go ahead and pause the video again and copy down the format I have here. You should come up with ideas for at least the main protagonist and an antagonist, and while you don't have to have any side characters yet, it might be a good idea for you to start thinking of them. Don't worry about background characters at all. The last thing you want to consider is what voice you want to tell your story in. We have 3 options. The first one is first person, in which the perspective of the story is from the point of view of one of the characters. Your second option is third-person limited. In third-person limited, the story isn't told directly from any of the characters' perspectives, but the narrator only knows the thoughts of one character. Your last option is third-person omniscient. Like third-person limited, third-person omniscient isn't told from any one character's perspective, but unlike limited, third-person omniscient knows all the thoughts of the characters at the same time. For the last part of this assignment, go ahead and copy this format here after you pause the video. Go ahead and choose how you want to tell your story, and once you do that, turn in the paper with all this information to me on the due date. You're done! Good job!